Undercover CEO starts working in his own company to expose a multi-million-dollar scam, but never expected to fall in love with the intern. Michael Carter wasn't just a CEO, he was a builder, a visionary, a man who had poured his blood, sweat, and soul into Carter Electronics. He had started the company from nothing, turning it into one of the leading electronics distributors in the country. Every product sold, every employee hired, every decision made, he had been there. He knew his company inside and out, or at least he thought he did. For the past 6 months, something was wrong. On paper, the financial reports looked perfect, steady profits, solid revenue. But the reality was different. Money was vanishing, slipping through the cracks like water through cupped hands. Millions, disappearing without a trace. The accountants found no errors, the auditors saw nothing unusual, and his board members dismissed his concerns. "Michael, you're overthinking this," one of them had told him during a board meeting. "Our numbers check out. Maybe there's just a slight market fluctuation." Market fluctuation? Michael didn't buy it. This wasn't a dip in sales. This was theft. He could feel it in his gut. Late one evening, long after the office had emptied, Michael sat alone in his leather chair, staring at the city skyline through his office window. His jaw clenched, his fingers tapping rhythmically against the mahogany desk. He had worked too hard to let someone rip his company apart from the inside. "If no one else will find out what's happening," he muttered, his voice low but firm, "I will." The decision hit him like a lightning bolt. He had spent too long looking at reports and listening to excuses. If he wanted the truth, he had to see it with his own eyes. Michael Carter was going undercover. The next morning, Michael stripped away the markers of his success, the tailored suits, the Rolex, the air of authority that followed him everywhere. In their place, he donned a worn-out hoodie, faded jeans, and an old cap. He looked at himself in the mirror, barely recognizing the man staring back. "Mike Carter," he murmured, adjusting the cap. "Just another worker trying to make a living." The disguise was simple, but it wasn't just about appearance. He had to become one of them. He had to walk like them, talk like them, work like them. Only then could he uncover the truth. At the warehouse, he approached the night shift supervisor, a gruff man named Larry, who barely glanced at him. "You the new guy?" Larry muttered, flipping through a clipboard. "Yeah, Mike Carter," Michael said, keeping his voice casual. Larry snorted. "Don't get too comfortable. Half of you new hires don't last a week." "I'm not here to make friends," Michael said, playing the part. "Just need the work." "Good, clock in and grab a crate. We don't pay for standing around." Michael nodded and joined the sea of workers. The first thing he noticed wasn't the work itself. It was the tension. The warehouse should have been a place of movement, efficiency, and teamwork. Instead, it felt uneasy. Workers kept their heads down, their eyes darting nervously. Conversations were quick, whispered. Something was off. The hours were brutal. The heavy lifting, the constant motion. His muscles ached, his back screamed, but he pushed through it. He had to. If he wanted answers, he needed to blend in. On his second night, while struggling with a particularly heavy crate, a soft voice interrupted him. "Need some help?" Michael turned and saw her. She wasn't like the others. While most workers had a look of exhaustion or quiet defeat, she had a quiet strength in her eyes. She was around 24, with dark curly hair tied neatly back, her skin a warm shade of brown. She wore a standard warehouse uniform, but there was something about her posture, determined, focused. Unlike the others, she didn't carry the same weight of defeat on her shoulders. "I got it," Michael grunted, not wanting to look weak. She raised an eyebrow, arms crossed. "Sure about that?" He hesitated. "Fine, maybe just a little." She grabbed the other end of the crate, and together, they set it down. "Thanks," he said, rolling his shoulders. "You're welcome. Mike, right?" she asked, extending a hand. "I'm Jenny." He shook it, noting the firm grip. "Yeah, first week. You?" 2 months, she said. "Internship program. Not exactly what I imagined when I signed up, though." Michael frowned. "Why's that?" She shrugged. "I thought I'd be learning logistics, maybe working with management. Instead, I'm hauling boxes and getting treated like I don't exist. Michael smirked. Sounds like management. Jenny let out a small laugh. You're not wrong, but it's fine. I'm just here to save money and help out the kids. Michael's brow furrowed. Kids? She hesitated for a second before nodding. Yeah, I donate most of what I make to an orphanage I grew up in. They need it more than I do. Michael felt something stir in his chest. She wasn't just kind, she was selfless. That's impressive, he admitted. She gave him a small, almost shy smile. Thanks. Anyway, welcome to the night shift. Just keep your head down and don't ask too many questions. Michael tilted his head. Why? Her expression darkened. Because people who ask questions don't last long here. Michael studied her carefully. You don't trust this place, do you? Jenny scoffed. I don't trust any place run by rich people? His stomach tightened slightly. What do you mean? She leaned against the crate, arms crossed. Rich people don't care about anyone but themselves. They build their empires on the backs of people like us, then act like they're doing us a favor. I've seen it my whole life. Greedy CEOs sitting in fancy offices while the workers break their backs for pennies. Michael forced himself to stay neutral. Not all rich people are bad. Jenny's eyes hardened. Every single one I've met has been. Michael felt an odd mix of guilt and curiosity. Jenny had no idea who he really was. To her, he was just another worker, another guy trying to get by. But he wasn't. He was the CEO she hated. And for the first time in his life, he didn't know what to say. Who was Jenny? Jenny had grown up in the foster care system, bouncing from home to home before landing in St. Mary's Orphanage. It had never been the best place, but it had been home. A small, underfunded shelter that took in abandoned kids, giving them food, shelter, and a chance at a future. She had aged out of the system at 18 with no family, no safety net, just a handful of savings from part-time jobs and a burning drive to make something of herself. College had been out of reach financially, so she worked. Warehouse shifts, waitressing, anything to keep herself afloat. But she never forgot the place that had raised her. Every spare dollar went back to the orphanage, paying for books, clothes, or sometimes just food for the kids who reminded her of herself. She was smart, hardworking, and fiercely independent. But there was a guardedness about her, a quiet reluctance to trust too easily. Life had taught her that promises meant little and that people only stuck around when it was convenient. Michael could see it now, in the way she kept an emotional distance, in the way her expression hardened whenever the topic of money or opportunity came up. She didn't trust the system, didn't believe in handouts, and had learned that if she wanted something, she had to fight for it herself. Yet despite everything, she still had hope. A rare kind of hope, the kind that made her believe in helping others, even when no one had helped her. Jenny's warning echoed in Michael's mind as the days passed. People who ask questions don't last long here. Something was wrong. He could feel it in the air. Thick, heavy, suffocating. Workers avoided eye contact when they spoke to him. Conversations cut off abruptly whenever a certain someone walked by, replaced by a stiff silence and darting glances. The kind of silence that came with fear. And all of it led back to one man, Rick Dalton, the warehouse manager, a man who wore authority like a weapon. Rick was in his mid-40s with a stocky build and cold, calculating eyes that always seemed to be watching, measuring, judging. His slicked back, graying hair and well-pressed shirts made him stand out from the other workers. But it wasn't just his appearance, it was his presence. He didn't bark orders like most managers. He didn't need to. One glance, one slow smirk, and the workers fell in line. His voice was always calm, almost too calm, the kind that sent a shiver down your spine. Michael had been watching him. Rick was always around when high-value shipments came in, but he rarely lifted a finger. Instead, he lingered near the loading dock, speaking in hushed tones with a select few workers, the ones who never seemed to struggle financially, despite their meager pay. Michael recognized the type. He'd seen men like Rick before, cowards who let others do their dirty work. Then one night, Michael saw it firsthand. It was past midnight. Most of the workers had gone home, but Michael had stayed behind, hiding in the shadows near the loading dock. Footsteps, voices. A group of men stood near a stack of crates, their words barely above a whisper. "Another shipment going out tonight?" one of them asked. "Yeah," another replied, lowering his voice. "Boss said the usual spot. He's making a fortune." Michael's fist clenched. His heart pounded so hard it felt like it would break through his ribs. This was it, the proof he needed. He narrowed his eyes, watching as the men cracked open one of the crates. Inside, brand new iPhones neatly stacked in their boxes. Michael felt his blood run cold. They weren't just stealing random inventory. They were smuggling high-end Apple products out of the warehouse, likely selling them on the black market for a massive profit. And the man orchestrating it all was standing right there. Rick Dalton. Michael watched as Rick took out his silver cigarette case, flipping it open with practiced ease. He placed a cigarette between his lips, lit it, and exhaled slowly, completely unbothered. Like this wasn't a crime. Like he owned this place. One of the men hesitated. "You sure no one's gonna notice?" Rick let out a low, amused chuckle, blowing out a cloud of smoke. "No one notices anything unless I want them to." The men laughed nervously. Michael's nails dug into his palms. Rick wasn't just a thief. He was dangerous. He had control over this place, over these people. He had built a system, one that kept everyone too afraid to speak up. Michael exhaled slowly, forcing himself to stay calm. He had worked too hard, built too much to let a rat like Rick destroy everything. But now he had a bigger problem. Michael had more than enough evidence to put Rick away. He could reveal himself, expose the operation, and take back control of his company. But if he did, he'd lose Jenny. She hated rich people, hated CEOs, and she had good reason. If she found out who he really was, everything between them would be over. And Michael wasn't ready for that. Not yet. So he made a decision. He wouldn't reveal himself, not until he figured out a way to take Rick down, without losing the one person who made him feel something real. Michael paced in the break room, gripping his phone so tightly his knuckles turned white. His heart pounded. His entire company, everything he had built, was being ripped apart from the inside, and the only person he could trust to help him fix it was David Langley, his right-hand man, the director of operations at Carter Electronics. He took a deep breath and dialed. The call barely rang before David picked up. David, concerned. "Mike, what's going on? It's 2 a.m. Michael, low voice, urgent. "David, listen to me carefully. I found the leak. The warehouse manager, Rick Dalton, he's running a black market smuggling operation out of our facility. High-end electronics, iPhones. He's got guys on the inside, and he's been covering his tracks for months." A pause, then a sharp inhale. David, tense. "Are you absolutely sure?" Michael, grimly. "I saw it with my own eyes. They were loading stolen inventory into trucks, talking about a usual spot. Rick runs this place like a damn mob boss." David swore under his breath. David, "Jesus, we need to shut this down immediately. I'll call security, alert the police." Michael, firmly. "No, not yet." David, confused. "Not yet?" "Michael, this is a criminal operation. We can't just sit on this." Michael, low and tense. "If we move too soon, we risk tipping Rick off. He's got people on the inside. If we call the cops now, he'll know something's up. He'll disappear before we can nail him." Silence. David exhaled sharply. David, "So what's the plan?" Michael, "I need to gather more evidence. Get proof that ties him directly to the stolen shipments. I want him taken down, David. Not just fired. I want him behind bars." David, "All right. What do you need from me?" Michael, "First, pull up every warehouse inventory log for the last 6 months. Cross-check missing inventory with high-value shipments. If we can find inconsistencies, we can build a case." David, "I'm on it." Michael, "Second, I need you to have a backup team on standby. Trusted security. No one from the warehouse. The moment I have concrete proof, we make our move. No leaks." David, "Consider it done." Michael nodded, gripping his phone tighter. Michael, softer, hesitant. "And David, one more thing." David, patiently, "Yeah." Michael ran a hand over his face. Michael, quietly, "There's someone here. A woman, Jenny, she's an intern, but she's different. A knowing pause. David, light chuckle. Michael Carter, the last time you were interested in someone, BlackBerry was still a thing. Michael smirked despite himself. Michael, it's not like that. David, skeptical. Uh-huh. Michael sighed. Michael, she hates CEOs. She thinks we're all greedy, selfish bastards. David whistled. David, well, that's awkward. Michael, serious. I can't let her find out who I am. Not yet. David's amusement faded. David, cautious. Mike, you're playing with fire. Michael, quietly. I know. A beat of silence. Then, David, just be careful, all right? Don't lose yourself in this. Michael swallowed hard. Michael, I won't. But deep down, he wasn't sure that was true. Like Michelle needed the help of David, we need your help here. We love to bring you more videos like this. Please subscribe to our channel. It's free for you, but for us, it's the biggest support you can give us. Don't miss the end. Over the next few days, Michael worked carefully, balancing his cover while gathering intel. He watched Rick like a hawk, noting every shipment, every suspicious conversation. With David feeding him data from the company's records, the puzzle pieces were finally coming together. Then one night, the moment came. Michael was in the warehouse, stacking boxes, when Rick stepped outside with two of his men. A delivery truck pulled up. Michael's pulse quickened. Michael, whispering to himself, "This is it." He slipped behind the crates, pressing himself against the cold metal shelves, and hit record on his phone. Rick lit a cigarette, his voice low and smooth. Rick to the driver. "Got another load for you. High-end stock, fresh from the main distribution center. Driver, you sure no one's catching on?" Rick chuckled, exhaling smoke. Rick, please, I run this place. No one makes a move without me knowing. Michael clenched his jaw. Rick, same drop-off point. Usual cut for the boys. Michael's fingers hovered over the send button. One press, and this footage would go straight to David. Then, sirens. Flashing red and blue lights flooded the loading bay as a fleet of black SUVs skidded to a stop. Rick's smirk vanished. David shouting, stepping out. "Nobody move! Hands where I can see them!" Rick staggered back, eyes wide, as armed security and undercover officers poured into the warehouse. His men scrambled, but there was nowhere to run. Officer, to Rick's men, "On the ground! Now!" Rick whipped around, furious. Rick snarling, "What the hell is this?" David held up a tablet, playing Michael's footage. The screen showed Rick's own face, smirking as he made the deal. Rick's face turned pale. David, coldly, "Game over, Rick." Rick lunged to run, but security tackled him hard, slamming him onto the pavement. Michael watched silently from the shadows. His mission wasn't over yet. For now, his cover remained intact. Days turned into weeks, and in the quiet moments between work, Michael and Jenny found themselves drawn to each other. They shared late-night conversations in the break room, talking about life, dreams, and struggles. Michael listened as Jenny spoke passionately about the orphanage she supported, how she had grown up without parents and wanted to give those kids the love she never had. Jenny, in turn, noticed something different about Michael. He wasn't like the other warehouse workers. There was a depth to him, a quiet kindness that made her feel safe. One evening, as they walked out together after work, Jenny playfully nudged him. Jenny, smiling, "You never talk about your past. What's your story, Mike?" Michael hesitated. He wanted to tell her everything, but the fear of losing her kept him silent. Michael, softly, "Let's just say, I know what it's like to have nothing." Jenny looked at him, sensing there was more to his words, but she didn't push. She was starting to fall for him, and deep down, Michael knew he was falling for her too. 2 weeks had passed, and Michael knew he couldn't hide the truth much longer. His heart had never felt this way before, so full yet so terrified. He wanted Jenny to know everything, but part of him feared what she would say. Would she hate him for lying? Would she walk away? But if there was one thing he was certain of, it was how much she cared about the orphanage. That was her world. And if he wanted her to understand him, he had to show her the kind of man he truly was. So he made a decision. That morning, Jenny received a call from the orphanage. She rushed there immediately, panic in her voice. When she arrived, she froze. The children were laughing, smiling, running around with brand new books, clothes, and toys. The once fading walls of the building had been repainted in bright, welcoming colors. Shelves were stocked with fresh supplies, and the caretaker, Ms. Dawson, looked at Jenny with tears of joy in her eyes. Ms. Dawson, voice shaking, "Jenny, an anonymous donor. They saved us. We don't have to shut down. The kids have everything they need now." Jenny's chest tightened as she looked around. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "Jenny," in disbelief. Who did this?" Behind her, a familiar voice spoke softly. "Michael." "I did." Jenny turned, her eyes wide with shock. Jenny, breathless. "Mike?" Michael swallowed hard, nervous, but seeing her expression, the raw emotion in her eyes, gave him courage. "Michael," softly, "because I know what it's like to struggle, and I know how much this place means to you." Tears filled her eyes as she shook her head, overwhelmed. Jenny, whispering, "No one's ever done something like this before?" Her voice broke, and in that moment, she couldn't stop herself. She threw her arms around him, holding on to him like she never wanted to let go. Michael held her close, his heart pounding against hers, feeling something he had never felt before. For the first time in a long time, he felt truly happy. That evening, they walked together through a quiet park. The sky burned orange and pink as the sun dipped below the horizon. A soft breeze rustled the leaves, but all Michael could focus on was the woman beside him. The weight of the secret he carried pressed on his chest. Michael, softly, "Jenny, there's something you need to know about me." She stopped, sensing the seriousness in his tone. Her brows furrowed slightly. "Jenny, what is it?" Michael took a deep breath. "Michael, I'm not just Mike from the warehouse." He looked into her eyes, afraid of what he might see there, once he said the words. "Michael, my real name is Michael Carter. I'm the CEO of this company." Jenny's breath hitched. She stared at him, stunned, as if her brain was trying to process the impossible. Jenny, barely above a whisper, "What?" Michael's throat was dry, but he forced himself to continue. "Michael, I went undercover to find out why the company was losing money. That's how I ended up in the warehouse. But in the process, I found something more important than business." Jenny still hadn't spoken. She was looking at him like she was seeing him for the first time. Michael steeled himself. "Michael, I grew up poor, just like you. My parents worked every single day, but it was never enough. When I finally made it, I swore I'd never forget where I came from. That's why I do this, to help people who need it." Silence. Jenny's hands trembled slightly. Jenny, quietly, You were lying to me this whole time?" Michael's chest tightened. Michael, softly sincere, "I never meant to hurt you, Jenny. I didn't know how to tell you, and I was afraid." Jenny looked at him with so many emotions in her eyes. Shock, confusion, disbelief. Michael's voice cracked. "Michael, afraid that if you knew who I really was, you wouldn't want me anymore." Jenny's lips parted slightly like she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. For the first time in his life, Michael felt powerless. Then finally she spoke. "Jenny," whispers, voice thick with emotion, "I always knew you were different." Michael's heart stopped. She looked down, blinking back tears before meeting his gaze again. And when she did, all he saw was understanding. "Jenny," softly, "and now I know why." Michael let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Michael, you're not mad?" Jenny wiped a tear away with the back of her hand and let out a soft, shaky laugh. "Jenny, maybe a little, but I get it." A small smile broke through her emotions. "Jenny, Michael, whoever you are, I love the man I got to know. The one who made me laugh, who listened, who cared about these kids. That's the man I fell for." Michael felt his entire world shift. Without thinking, he took her hands in his, gripping them tightly. "Michael, Jenny, I love you." A tear slipped down her cheek as she whispered, "Jenny, I love you too." Michael's breath caught. For the first time, he truly let himself believe it. And as she leaned in, her lips barely brushing his, the world disappeared. Their first real kiss, under the fading sunlight, was soft, slow, and filled with every unspoken word between them. Michael knew in that moment he had finally found something more valuable than wealth. He had found his home. Months later, surrounded by close friends and the children from the orphanage, Michael and Jenny stood together at the altar. He watched as Jenny walked toward him, looking more beautiful than ever. As they exchanged vows, Michael knew this was his greatest success, a life built not just on business, but on love, kindness, and second chances. And as they sealed their promise with a kiss, the crowd erupted in cheers. Michael Carter had found his happily ever after.